Welcome to A Pair of Bookends, the book club you can carry anywhere. I'm your host, Hannah MacDonald, and I'll be bookending the conversation with some of the most exciting voices from the bookish world. Today on the podcast, I am delighted to be bringing back one of my favourite writers, who just so happens to be one of my best friends. Emma Hinds is a queer writer based in Manchester. She has a master's degree in theology and the arts from the University of St Andrews. Emma has written multiple pieces for theatre and is the author of the well-known fanfiction series The Heir to the House of Prince, which currently runs at over 1 million words and has received over 1 million hits. Emma has written 2 historical novels for adults, The Knowing, which was published by Bedford Square in January last year, which was a Sunday Times historical fiction book of the month and received praise from The Guardian, Diva magazine and Red magazine, to name a few. Their second adult novel, The Quick and the Dead, was published also by Bedford Square in January this year and was described by The Times as an exuberant novel for fans of the Gothic and the unlikely. But what they're here to talk about today is their latest book, a YA fantasy novel that is your new romantic obsession, and that is Witchlore, which is out now and published by Usborne in the UK and Wednesday Books in the US. And here to chat all about it, hi Em, you live here now.
I sound quite good, don't I, when you sum me up like
You
that?
do!
Sound quite good. When you were like, and it's described by them as a do, I was like, oh, I'd forgotten about
I
that.
saw your face perk up when I said the Times quote.
Oh,
We love to see it.
yeah, we love it.
You know the drill. Before we dive into you and your book, I have to ask your least favourite question, but my favourite question, which is what are you currently reading, if anything?
I didn't prepare for this. No, but I am reading The Whole by Hiroko Oyamanda.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And that is a really teeny tiny book that we picked up
Yeah,
in
I love how I say
the
I'm
shop.
reading it, but really what I'm doing is like when I have breakfast in the morning, I'm reading it for like 15 minutes and then putting it down. But
There's nothing wrong with that.
yeah, but I could read it. I could sit for an hour and I'd finish it. But
Oh,
I
you
just,
would, yeah.
yeah, I just
But also
haven't.
your brain is quite full at the moment.
It's quite full. It's nobody wants to live there. It's an overcrowded neighborhood.
Yeah, it's a lot, and I do want to ask you about this because I think it's honestly like I'm in complete awe of you in how you've managed to juggle over the last couple of years writing your historical fiction for adults, and then you've also been writing YA fantasy, which is obviously
Yeah.
where you've produced Witchlaw, and I just want to know how that has been. Obviously, as your friend, I have like a pretty good idea. But for the listeners, what has that been like to juggle all of that at once?
It's been pretty mad. Yeah, it's been pretty mad. I mean, I can't really speak to like any other experience because this is the
Yeah,
one I'm living,
yeah.
but I'm aware of like other writers who debuted at the same time as me are on a completely different time scale.
Hmm.
And that comes with its pros and cons. Like I
Yeah,
think there's benefits and bad things about both. So like to be like completely transparent, the benefit is like financial.
yeah.
So for everybody out there who's wondering how writers make money,
They don't.
predominantly we don't. When we're starting our careers, like I've obviously been writing since for like 10 years, but my career didn't really start kind of in this kind of mode that I'm in now,
Yeah,
in the sense that I was over the tax bracket. That's how we can measure it.
yeah.
Like, did you have to legally pay tax for your writing before 2024? No, I did not. And so, like, for writers at the stage of career that I'm at now, we only really make money on the front end, which means that we only make money when we sell something.
Yeah.
So we get like money when we sign, money when we submit a draft, money when we publish. And then like hopefully royalties will come in and all
Yeah.
of that will build. Like that's what you really hope for. But yeah, at the moment it's all on the front end. So the pro about like having 2 books out in a year and that kind of situation is that it's more financial security. The con is just so much less time than what other people might be playing with if they maybe have a book out one book out a year or one book out every 18 months. There's much less time to kind of think and research and really be in a book, and that's
Hmm.
probably been the biggest kind of challenge. But also, I don't know, we'll see. There's a question like, do I know any other way to be?
I mean, I find it really like incredible because obviously you're in it, you're in the trenches, you're, trying to produce all these words and like you will be having creative brain that's going into meltdown when you've got all these deadlines coming at you and like, you're probably not able to take as much time to enjoy it because you're like, I need to get on to the next thing, I need to get on to the next thing, like we all do as creatives. Obviously, you will have times where, like, at your launch party, you'll be having a good time, but again, it's like if you're engaging with readers of your work or whatever, it's still, it still has that same intensity. Whereas, like, from an outside perspective, knowing that there was a point in time where, like, you were just trying to, like, get an agent and you were just trying to get your work seen, to now see that, like, you're signing contracts for new exciting projects and you've got 3 books out into the world. Like, it's just so, like, incredible to know that there was a period of time. And I think for a lot of people out there that are just starting out, like, that's a really hopeful thing to know that, like, this hasn't just like magically happened for you.
Right. Yeah, yeah. It hasn't magically happened. And I think like there's such a so like there is, and I'll always be the first to like say this, is that like there's a huge element of luck in like publishing.
Yeah,
There's also like there's always privilege like
yeah,
involved in it. Like there's a privilege that I don't even really like see it in myself, in the sense that I'm like a white person being published, like just the numbers in terms of
yeah,
how
yeah.
many people of color are published compared to being a white person being published. Like I already know that there's an ease for me in coming into this world that there isn't going to be for other people.
Yeah, absolutely.
And, I also aware that like coming at it as a person who has like a chronic illness,
Yeah.
like I wouldn't have been able to do this if I
Hmm.
didn't have somebody who was financially supporting,
Yeah.
like making rent,
Yeah.
basically. Because
Yeah.
I stopped being able to work, as you know, but most people probably don't know, is like I stopped being able to work in 2018 because of my chronic illness. And I wouldn't have survived if I
Yeah.
wasn't married to somebody who could like take the reins.
Yeah.
And for so many, and that's like the power of dual income, really,
Hmm.
right? And that's the power of I've been in a relationship, a committed relationship since I was 18 years old. So that's like years and years of that kind of stability
Yeah.
that then allows me to, be able to not work
Hmm.
because I can't work. Like, there are people who have my illness who, when they can't work, like it collapses their life,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Like all sorts of terrible things happen and they lose like housing situations and all of that. Like it's been really horrible being a writer having an illness, but like I've been able to do it, right?
Yeah.
I've still had my house and
Yeah.
I've still had my life and I've had my friends and I've been able to access the medication that I need and things like that. So like that's a level of privilege as well. And there are like loads of people who, everybody has a different thing, but the fact that like the economy is so rough
Yeah.
and life is so hard, like it's hard enough just to like get words on paper or get in the headspace to write in this
Hmm.
like chaotic universe right now. And I'm dedicated to doing it every day. It's my job.
Yeah.
But like the people who love to be creative and are like getting home at the end of a long day, yeah, for everybody who's out there who is like wanting to write and wanting to be creative and things like that, it's I always want to be like, you know what, there's a level of like, it's not just that I worked hard. Like I did work hard.
Yeah.
I'm not undervaluing my work, but like I had help, right?
Yeah.
It's not that I'm a genius and lightning struck.
I will argue that you are a genius. Thank you.
I wouldn't, it's support,
But yeah,
right?
it's yeah, I get no, I get where you're
Yeah.
coming from. Yeah.
I had support. I had people in my corner pushing me up and fighting for me, and some of it is sheer luck. Like it's just complete luck that I sent a manuscript to an agency, and the person I sent it to didn't want it, but passed it on to somebody else who became my agent. Sheer luck. But like, having the people around me who encouraged me and kept me going through
Yeah.
that process, like that's other people and support, and that's why like community support is so important for creatives, really.
100%. And on that note of community, I think it's time to dive into your new book, Witchlore.
Yeah, I know we kind of got off on like a little artist tangent at the
We
beginning.
did, but we love getting on our pedestals, don't we? And I do think it's an important conversation to be having. Like you said, like the economy is shit and the arts is in a horrendous state. And the fact that, we have to rely on, it's only if you're in a position where you're able to rely on somebody else that's bringing in more money than you know, to support you as a creative. Like, it's just a really bleak position to be in,
Mm.
really. Like, yes, there's kind of privilege that comes into that, but like, if my boyfriend's like helping out with like food shopping because I can't afford it, because even though I'm working multiple jobs, I can't make ends meet. Like, is that really a position of privilege that he's able to pay for the food shopping? I don't know. I don't see it as that. Like, I would prefer to have my own money to
Yeah, no, I know exactly what you mean, and I feel the same. Like, as a person who wasn't able to work,
Yeah.
this is the year where I've like made my own money, significant enough to
Yeah.
like be a contributor in the
Yeah.
household from writing. And part of that is due to better health, and some of that is like jobs and contracts and whatnot. But like,
Hmm.
yeah, where at the time it doesn't feel like a privilege to be
Yeah.
like, oh, I have somebody looking after me, especially if like we're not talking, neither of us are living the lap of luxury
No.
in this situation. We're talking like, okay, somebody can cover the rent and you're horrified all the time.
Yeah, yeah, literally.
Like, if your car breaks down, you are terrified every time you go on the motorway because you're just like,
Yes. Yeah.
um,
It's actually so funny to me, the representation of Emma's, and I'm doing quote marks here, life of luxury now is not sailing around the Amalfi Coast on a yacht. It's like Emma used their advance on healthcare for their chronic
yeah.
illness that they've been dealing with for years, and also fixing the shower that had been leaking for years.
Oh yeah, the shower was tragic. The shower was
I remember
tragic.
you messaging me being like, I can fix the shower.
I know. It's a beautiful time.
But we do
Yeah.
need to get onto your book because that's what you are here to promote, and start by telling the listeners a bit about Witchlore and give us a little synopsis of it.
My least favorite thing.
I'm
Okay, so
sorry.
it's all right. So Witchlaw is about a shapeshifter called Lando who is having a really terrible time.
Yep.
They live in Manchester, in modern day Manchester. They go to school there. They attend
Mm,
Dyke College of Witchcraft. They are a bad shapeshifter and a bad witch because they cannot do magic of any kind. They can't even control their shapeshifting powers, and they were involved in a terrible tragedy the summer that the book starts, which resulted in the death of their girlfriend Elizabeth.
mhm.
And they return to school in the autumn, and they are very unhappy and have been experiencing like episodes of suicidal ideation and that kind of thing, and they're a real outcast at
Yeah.
school. And then on the first day of term, they meet a new student called Bastian, who has transferred from a college in London. And Bastian tells Lando that there is a resurrection spell that they could use to resurrect Elizabeth. And all they would need to do is steal a book. And it goes from there, basically. They get into all sorts of shenanigans. They travel all over the Northwest, and yeah, it's a love story, but it's also a story about recovery
Yeah.
and identity and finding yourself in grief and learning to forgive yourself. And it's also, I hope, quite funny. I wanted it to be quite funny.
I mean, it is, and I mean, you know how much I love your writing. I'm always telling you this, but I feel like it was a really like fun adventure novel,
Yeah.
whilst also exploring like, some dark and heavy themes and topics, but you still somehow managed to make it like fun and funny and, an enjoyable read. Like, I didn't feel dragged down at any point. I mean, me and you love like dark fiction anyway, so I don't know, but
Yeah,
for me,
it was very different to write a book for young people specifically
yeah,
rather than a book for adults. Um, but I very much had a certain type of young person in mind, which
yeah,
was kind of like young person I was. Um, but also the kind of young person who I used to work with who are like have a really dark, funny sense of humor, who make a lot of like suicide jokes
mm,
and are kind of edgy and a little bit gritty and feel like they're on the outside looking in. And
yeah,
that's kind of the young person that I had in mind when I wrote it, and
mm,
particularly young people perhaps who are either like struggling with their own mental health or like
Yeah.
struggling with their own queer identity or gender identity. Because that's a big part of Lando's journey, is coming to a sense of like self-acceptance
Yeah.
about who they are and how they exist in the universe. So yeah, but I hope the jokes are good.
They are. What would you say, because it obviously is your first time writing a YA, what would you say the things were that were important to you when writing for a YA audience? Like, were there specific things that you had in mind?
Yeah, so I've always wanted to be a writer since I was a kid.
Hmm.
Um, but I would say that like it formed into like a real possibility of that actually being a job that people did.
Yeah.
Well, because I don't know, I think when I was a child, I sort of thought that writers were ordained like priests. Do you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
somebody else chose them and then
Yes,
they
yeah.
got to do it. And it was only when I became like a young teenager that I really realized, oh, like no, people choose to do that. I could choose to do this.
Hmm.
Um, and it wasn't like necessarily a career path that was particularly like illuminated for me
Yeah.
as a person. Um, like I didn't know anybody. Like there are people who know people who've grown up being right. That's something that I think is really fun for me now as like an aunt and like a godparent, is knowing that like the kids in my life will grow up knowing somebody who's a writer.
Yeah.
Like that makes me really happy. But like I didn't know anybody who
Hmm.
was a writer, or like it was like the 12 degrees of separation was beyond. It was like a million degrees, right?
Yeah.
Um, but I knew I wanted to be one, and I just like I really carried this desire to write books for people like me, because I struggled a lot as a young person with my mental health, and it was untreated. And those were really dark periods of my
Hmm.
adolescence. And for me, like books were such a light in that time. And when I read something new, and it felt like somebody was speaking to me about the
Hmm.
problems that I was facing in my life. It's like they were saying that I wasn't alone. So I think I've always carried that kind of desire from that period of my life.
Yeah.
And this was a chance to kind of fulfill it, to be like, you know what, I'm going to write the book for the young person that I was, right? I'm going
Yeah.
to write the book that I needed when
Hmm.
I was 14, kind of the book that I didn't know I needed, or 15 or 16 or whatever, and really kind of connect to that. And I think it's a book that I probably have been trying to write since I was a teenager, maybe. Like I wrote a lot of fantasy stuff when I was a teenager, like so bad, just torturous.
Would you say it
Terrible.
was would you say it was fantasy books that were the books you're speaking about books that you needed? Did you find those books that you needed, or and were those books fantasy, or was it that you needed to end up writing this for yourself, for your past self?
Yeah, I think I found things that I needed in different places.
Hmm.
So, I didn't read like a lot of queer literature when I was young. I think that would have been very, very taboo in the culture that I grew up
Yeah.
in. But I do remember reading The Color Purple and that being like a big deal. We read it at
Yeah.
school, and that made a really big impression on me in terms of like, oh, there are lesbians. They,
They exist.
there yeah, and I think in terms of yeah, I did read a lot of fantasy when I was a young teenager, people
Hmm.
like Philip Pullman and Holly Black. But yeah, I also read when I was very young, like Jacqueline Wilson and all of her books. And
Yeah.
I think some of her stuff that was about mental health really stuck with me,
Yeah.
particularly like Illustrated Mum.
Yeah. Oh my God, yes.
But I've really identified with Marigold. Like
Yeah.
as a teenager, it helped me to know that other people felt the way that I felt on the inside, that
Hmm.
kind of urge that she has to self-destruct. So I don't know if I found everything that I was looking for, and I think that's part of why, because I wrote all the way through my teens, so I was always writing stories and books, and they were usually books about terribly depressed teenagers. So like, I think I was also writing what I needed,
Yeah.
and this is kind of like we got to the eventual point where Witchlore has kind of been able to pull everything together that
Yeah.
I wanted.
And I mean, you've done an incredible job of exploring that experience, and I do wonder how it was for you stepping back into that kind of young person's perspective, because I think we do often forget what that was like. I mean, we might think back and traumatize ourselves, but
I I don't really have a problem with it. Like it's something that one of my other friends says to me is like, "Oh, you write teenagers so well. You're so good
you
at romance."
do.
And like because like one of my narrators in my fanfic series is two of my narrators in my fanfic series are like 16 and 17.
Right.
So like I've spent a lot of time in their heads. Um, but also I have majority like written young characters.
Mm,
Like the Knowing Flora is 17,
yeah.
and it's my protagonist in The Knowing. In The Quick and the Dead, Kit is like only 19.
Yeah.
And in Witchlore, Lando and Bastian are sort of like 18, 19 years old.
Mm,
So I think actually a big part of my writing so far has been about like revisiting those experiences and sort of giving them voice and writing them out. And yeah, I think it won't be this book, my next adult book, unfortunately, or my next YA book. But I'm looking forward to a time where I can write somebody like in their 30s. Might be quite nice.
I thought you were going to say I can write someone that's happy or something.
Oh no, that's probably never going to happen. But yeah, no, it wasn't like it was scarring or anything to like read
No.
it. Also, Lando's there is a lot of like Lando's feelings that I've experienced, but they're not all exclusive to my own teenage experience. So
No.
for instance, like all of the stuff about grief that kind
Mm,
of comes from my adult experiences, some of my adult experiences with grief and like the gender dysphoria stuff that's
yeah.
like maybe from older parts of my life. Like so it's not like it's not like it was a traumatic experience to bring Lando's history to life. And I think writing teenagers are quite fun because they are so unruly
Yeah.
and selfish. And I like that. It's fun to be in the head. And sometimes in edits, we did run up into this thing of like Lando's unlikable. And I was like, well, yeah, they are. Like they're going through a lot.
Yeah.
Anybody with the best will in the world struggles to like go through something really hard
Hmm.
and not be a jackass occasionally.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
like if you are a teenager with like no emotional support, which
Yeah.
is Lando's experience because they are magically isolated,
Hmm.
you know, of course you're going to be a bit of a turd.
I mean, yeah, I was thinking like Lando is like this really spiky character, and you know, but they have been going through it. Like
Yeah.
they've had their fair share of like trauma, and that it's kind of like, well, fair enough. Like you would be, wouldn't you? And I do want to ask about their relationship with their parents because I think your relationships with your parents are like it's your most formative relationship, and it can have a real impact on you, how you're raised, how your parents speak to you, how you engage with each other, what that dynamic is like, what the household feels like, and also, whether you're accepted as you are. And I think all of those things are really interesting to look at in terms of I certainly look back now at like what my household was like and how that's affected me now. Could you tell us a little bit about creating the dynamic that Lando has with their parents and how that might affect the way they are now?
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest, like in the first draft, there were no parents.
Oh, really?
At all, yeah, there were no parents. And like the very, very first draft. And then I kind of had to reckon with, yeah, they probably need more of a backstory as to like what is going on.
What were they? Were they like an orphan? Like, what was the?
They just were absent. Like, so
Okay.
Lando's parents are absent in the
Yes.
book. That's kind of the point of them is that they are not neglectful material in a material sense,
Hmm.
and neither are Bastian's parents, but both Lando and Bastian experience different types of like emotional neglect
Yeah.
from their parents. And in Lando's case, I'd say it's probably more extreme
Hmm.
because their parents both like Lando's parents have frustrations with Lando because firstly because they're not shapeshifting appropriately,
Yeah.
and then also because they are not gender conforming in the
Hmm.
way that they want them to be. So that produces a lot of trauma in Lando,
Hmm.
in that feeling of like always their parents are wanting them to change and they don't accept them how they are, and their memories of their home life are that they were kind of a prisoner in this situation that they couldn't get out of unless they kind of conformed or
Yeah.
tried to conform. And in some cases, like they were just not able to conform at all. And originally I had that as part of who Lando was, but I didn't really have it on the page.
Hmm.
And then my agent at the time, Philippa Milne Smith, who used to work at Soho, was just kind of like, yeah, we need to actually like see the parents. You have to
Yeah.
like put them on the page. So I added in like some memories, but also there's actual moments with both Bastian's dad and Lando's mum, which were kind of interesting to bring to the page. I think with Bastian, it was really important that like it was his dad rather than his mum
Yeah.
who was the most absent. Some of that was like a little bit of like a racial dynamic and not wanting to like play into a stereotype,
Yeah.
but also to do with like highlighting how Bastian connects to like his own sense of like manhood and masculinity
Hmm.
through magic, because Bastian's father has like rejected magic completely. With Lando's mum, I think the reason I wanted to put the mum on the page rather than the dad is their dad is inherently like a very powerful and authoritative figure. Whereas their mum, her authority comes from like her beauty and her charm in
Yeah.
a way. Like when she meets Bastian, he's immediately charmed by her. Like it's
Hmm.
almost like he can't help it. And I wanted to highlight how that experience can be for a young person who has like a charismatic parent,
Yeah.
behaves a different way in public than they do in private,
Mm.
and how it can feel when you kind of clash in those situations. I think very often a child feels like they are being shown up to be unruly
Yeah.
or truculent or disobedient or rude or
Mm.
unpleasant, but really they're responding to who the parent truly is
Yeah.
rather than responding to the charm of the moment. And I feel like that's a very specific childhood and teenage experience
Yeah.
that comes from like having to live in a house with a person who's behaving a certain way. And
Yeah.
so I wanted to get that moment on the page where like Lando pushes back against their mum
Yeah.
and feels all of that kind of like social awkwardness.
Mm.
It's like it's not about this moment, but if you just look at it at this moment, it looks like Lando's just being rude or unpleasant. So yeah, they ended up in the book, and I think it's better that they are there, probably.
Yeah, no, and I do think it tells you a lot about a person. And I think, the first time Bastian watches that dynamic playing out, and I think for both of them, when they go into those homes and see that dynamic, they're both like, oh, okay, this is this is why they are. This has maybe contributed to why they are the way they are. And I do always think that's an interesting thing to find out about a person. And there's also a moment where Lando is asking, this is separate from the parent thing, but when Lando is asking Bastian about, because both Bastian and Lando have experienced some form of loss, and Lando's asking Bastian about their loss, and they're asking how somebody takes their tea or coffee and how that can really like tell you a lot about a person. And I think it's those details that are just really interesting to find out about somebody because it can tell you so much. And I know that there's a drastic difference between how you were brought up by your parents and how you might take your brew. But I do think those details are important.
Yeah, and I think the reason I think I put that in there is that details about like how is another way of like memorializing people who are lost as
Yeah.
well, is that we like take small habits of theirs
Mm.
and really like cling to them or want to remember how they did certain things.
Yeah.
And to me, like a cup of tea or a cup of coffee is one of those like things. And I think that's probably just like comes from my own experience with like my grandparents and how the way that they drank tea is like so specific to
Yeah.
them, you know? And it's like a night. It's a way of like. You sent me that thing. We talked about it. The passage in that book that's all about like how you love someone is like how you remember the things about them. And I think that's what it's really about, is like Lando asking Bastian like this question about how someone has taken their tea or their coffee is really like how do you love them? Like
Yeah.
how would I have loved them if they existed? Like, or how would you show love? Like you're asking that kind of question, which is really kind question to ask when somebody's gone.
I think it is a really like, nice question to ask and really thoughtful because I think often when you meet somebody and they've lost somebody and they're speaking about it, it's often the question of like, oh well, how did they die and not like, how did they live rather like is the more it's the question that you want to answer is what were they like whilst they were living rather than, how it's not the awful stuff that you want to get into. Do you know what I mean? You don't get the opportunity to speak about the way that person lived anymore. So I do think it's a nice gift that Lando sort of gives Sebastian is the opportunity to give those details. And I do want to ask you a bit more about grief and sort of how that came to be such an important theme in the book. But I don't know how much you can say without it being spoiler territory.
Well, I think it's okay to say like it's a book about grief because like a character dies in the prologue.
Yeah.
So, like, you
And
know,
by the way, the first line is the day she dies is beautiful. Full
yeah,
stop.
exactly.
Thank
So
you.
like people, it's not a spoiler. Um, Yeah, I think grief can be like such an isolating experience,
Yeah.
even if you're going through it with people who loved in the same way that you did.
Hmm.
And I think loss is something that's particular. I was interested in this in like exploring loss in teenage years,
Yeah.
particularly because part of that comes from when I was at school, we had like a couple of deaths, and it is a bizarre thing
Hmm.
when a school-aged person dies
Yeah.
quite suddenly or tragically, because it's like everything still goes on. Like
Hmm.
you still have to go to school, you still have to put on your uniform, and all of the world still turns, and you kind of it's different in a way to an adult experience where maybe you have a little bit more agency in adulthood. You can make changes about your life.
Yeah.
Um, but even if you've entirely changed as a person, um, in your teenage years, you can't be like, you know what, this loss has really changed me, so I think I'm going to pack up and move to Australia. Do you know what
Mm.
I mean? You're
Yeah.
stuck in being a teenager. Um, and that's something that I wanted to write about, that kind of place of isolation, and then finding somebody who helps you understand your own isolation. And Lando's journey is a journey of like realizing, oh, I've actually been quite broken for a really long time,
Hmm.
and I didn't realize how broken I was. And here's somebody who is shining light on that, and it's uncomfortable, but it's also making me feel seen for the first time in my life, which
Mm.
I think is a very true process. And it speaks to me as well to the unique thing of being a teenager, um, when someone kind of like builds the world for you,
Yeah.
kind of live in it together in a new way that you didn't realize you could do before. And I think I had a lot of experiences like that as a teenager where I would meet somebody and they became my whole world very
Mm.
quickly.
Yeah.
And I wanted to capture some of that. And I don't know if it's unique to being a teenager, but it was unique to my teenage years. So
But I do think there is something unique about, not necessarily unique, it is quite a universal thing, like finding love for the first time. Is that what you mean?
yeah, I think, but it's more than love. It's like,
Being seen and finding,
yeah, it's not, I always think it's like when somebody completely opens the world up for you,
yes.
way that you never have had before. Um, and I think it is part of that is love, but it can also happen like in friendships or
Hmm.
family relationships or anything like that. But in this book, it happens like through romance. Yeah.
Yeah. And it is a beautiful little romance that happens.
I know. I wrote a romance. Who the fuck even knew?
I mean, you did write a romance, but you also, it was all your usual, it was your usual style of Why is everything so hard? Let them just be happy and run off into the sunset. And Emma's like, no,
Never,
not gonna
never.
happen.
I love to write angst. Like I love to write angst. It's my favorite thing. And like, yeah, I've written nearly 2 million words of fanfic just on angst alone. I'm powered by it. I just love it. I think it makes the ending so much more worth it, you
Yeah,
know. Although
yeah.
I'm not above just leaving an angsty ending. You know, I love that. I would be like happy to swim in angst from beginning to end,
Oh, you would, yeah.
but
You'd
they
be
make
quite happy for like us to think they're gonna live happily ever after and then throw them off a cliff at the last minute. Like,
I do love those kind of books though, you know.
I
They
did, I
do.
did wonder when they went to the edge. I
Yeah.
was like,
Yeah.
where are we going here?
So, yeah. No. That's such a dark reading, Hannah. Only you would think that. Only you
Because
who
I
would,
know you and I know what you've
yeah.
done to my character in the
Yeah,
past.
exactly. You're just like, where are the stones? You're gonna bring out the stones and stone someone together. No, it is for me a very, very happy ending.
Yes.
And yeah, it's a different set of skills, I think,
Mm,
right? A convincing happy ending.
yeah.
And in a way that's not so saccharine that it's I think it has to feel earned,
Yeah.
and it has to feel like they've really worked very hard to get there.
Stop
So
making your characters work so hard, Emma.
it's not so, I mean there are I don't yeah it's I guess it's just not my skill set. I think there are people out there who can write books where everything's easy, but I'm probably not one
I
of
don't think
them.
that's a skill set. I think it does make it more interesting to read, but I just know going into it that I have to mentally prepare myself that you might destroy me mentally whilst I'm reading. Not
I
mentally, emotionally whilst I'm reading.
That was another thing that I really liked about writing for young people
Yeah.
is that like young people are very high stakes, right?
Yes, yeah.
Like your first love is like a great love and like you have no sense of perspective on it.
No.
So you can't like go forward 20 years and learn that like everything's going to be okay and everything's going
Mm,
to change. Like the torture that you feel in being bullied age 14 or 15 is so intense
yeah.
and deep, and your first heartbreak is so intense, and your first experience of like somebody dying, even if it's not somebody that you love very much, like in
Hmm.
the same way that Lando was in love with Elizabeth, it's so powerful. And I wanted to spend some time in those places because it's kind of like a rare privilege, really, because the
Yeah.
older the character gets, the less reason they have to be so like such drama queens, really, basically.
Yeah.
And I love the drama. Like the teenage drama is so much fun, and they are silly, and they do make sweeping generalizations, and they feel everything really deeply. But also lots of really bad shit does happen to them. So
You do write their love story so well, and I think you're right. Like teenagers love high stakes, they love drama. Like I've been there, first love and falling in love, and unrequited love were things that
yeah,
I experienced, and thought I was like living out the most devastating heartbreak ever because
yeah,
somebody didn't want to be my boyfriend.
exactly. And those are important moments to hold on to.
They
I
are.
think I'm just there are different ways of writing this type of book, I think. But for me, I'm very much a person where I'm like, I want my main characters to be in deathly peril, like kind of every third chapter, right? You know, like I want the stakes to be really high. I want like so that's what we have in Witchlore is that, there's the spell book, but then there's all of these magical creatures that they have to deal
Yes.
with. And so like every third chapter or so, they're like meeting a new different type of deadly magical creature and having
Yeah.
to manage that. And like that for me is like where the real fun is, because when you throw like fantasy characters into a life or death situation, then
Hmm.
that it gives them like permission to open up in different ways.
Yeah.
And it also gives them like permission to touch is the other thing. So
Yeah.
like when you're trying to save somebody's life, like, oh, you might grab them by the hand, and or you might like throw yourself against them and in bodily form to roll down a hill to save them from something that's coming to. all of that like physicality,
Yeah.
because at the start of the book they are essentially strangers. Like
Hmm.
every time that they risk their lives together, they are physically getting more comfortable with each other in
Yeah.
like and that's always, I think that's really fun and is always like a lovely little challenge to write of like how are they gonna, get to know one another and get closer together whilst also maintaining their emotional boundaries and their emotional distances.
And I think the intimacy of magic was a really sort of exciting thing to read because you obviously know the feeling of when somebody first touches your hand or when like their knee like goes near yours when you sat down next to each other and you know like all the buzz around that. But I think for these characters, because they're involved in the world of magic, it's like those sorts of things when they first come into their dynamic become like I don't know, just an extra layer of excitement for them. I do want to get more into the magic aspect of things because fantasy isn't obviously my usual language, and it's not something that I've read a ton of. But I wondered what it was like to build these magic systems in the world of Witchlore and creating those spells. Could you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah. So, well, the thing that you mentioned earlier is like their magical, like there's a sense of magical connection between
Yes.
them that builds throughout
I
the book.
realized as I was saying it, I started backtracking because I panicked and was like, is that a
No, no,
spoiler?
no, I don't think so. Because like we don't have to be explicit about it, but like
Yeah.
I think the idea of like yeah, this idea of like magical connection being kind of like a metaphor for like what we experience as humans when we connect with another person
Hmm.
is something that I'm always interested in. I've realized like I probably realized in writing the second book in this witch law world that like it's something that I'm not quite like done with yet.
Yeah.
But it's like a huge part of my fanfic explorations, like an original detail that I brought to that world, which I've kind of like then brought over to witch law, even just in the way that like so for in the Heir to the House of Prince, there's like the colors of the like two of the main characters' magic, they correspond with the colors of the magic of the characters in witch law.
Yeah.
Just as like a little way of like giving a nod to like my Prince readers
I love
who
that.
like they've been part of this community. Like I've been writing that fic for like since 2021, so like it's something that I hope honors the fact that those people have put like a lot of investment into me. Like they've given me a lot of support and love, and now hopefully there's like a story they can actually buy of mine that also like has a little hint to like how it's been part of my journey.
Yeah.
But yeah, magical connectivity between two people is something that I'm always really interested in exploring because I think it's just such a fun thing to look at human connection
Yeah.
through. In building like witch law as a this world, for me, it's kind of like it's magical realism, so it's not high fantasy. It doesn't need a
Hmm.
map, thank God. I'm not a map person, and I'm not like shading map books, okay? I understand it. I was really bad at D&D in school, right? Anything that involved orienteering,
Yeah.
mountaineering. I don't know how to use a compass. I don't know how to read a map well. And like, I'm sick of being judged for it,
And
basically.
that's so fair.
So I am never going to write a high fantasy. Never, ever, ever. Um, and so I like to stay in magical realism. And so the old, it's kind of like an alternate reality. So the world that I've created is identical to ours. Well, it's not identical to ours, but a lot of the features of it are the same,
Hmm.
aside from this key component of it's an obsession of mine and it always will be, which is like the witch trials,
Yeah.
like the 1600s. And it's basically it's a history of witchcraft that's based on this idea of so what if witchcraft was real? And then in the 1600s, when the witch trials happened, loads of those witches were killed out, and essentially witchcraft just became like this minor religion. And like all of the power was lost. Nearly all of the power was lost. All of the spell books, all of the resources. It was essentially like a witch genocide that happened.
Hmm.
And now in 2021, when the book is set, witches are just kind of like how we today view modern Wiccans, which is like it's a religion, but it's basically ineffective. And magic is not as interesting or as useful or compelling to us as science, which makes a lot of sense to me as a person who was brought up very religious in a community that had a strong belief in like miracles and the
Hmm.
gifts of the spirit. So I kind of, but like my reality now living in the secular world is most people are like, well, miracles don't happen. Things that do happen are just kind of weird, like whatever. So it was kind of taking that mode of the relationship between those two things that
Hmm.
like that's how people in the world of witch lore, non-witch people will view witchcraft. They'll view it as a kind of silly religion that
Yeah.
has some weird beliefs and produces a few sparkles, but like it's not going to change your life or is
Mm.
not important science. And then under the surface of that world, I wanted to have a deeper power that's hidden, which is like magical creatures. So that includes shapeshifters, and then basically anything that's ever happened in British folklore ever, I'm like, it's real. That's real. That's real in this world. So anything that's happened is real.
I
Um,
didn't know, sorry. I didn't know about, is it Bogarts? How do you say that
Buggets.
word?
Buggets.
Boggarts.
Yeah.
I didn't know that that was like a mythical creature that was specific to Northern England.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Well, yeah, you actually get them in lots of places. So like
Right.
there's boggart myths all over. I'm pretty sure they're all over the UK, and also there's a different they you get different versions of them all over
Hmm.
the world basically. And yeah, so but there is a specific one in Boggart Whole Cloth, which is in Fallowfield.
Right.
So I have an amazing Reader's Digest book, which is folklore of Great Britain and Ireland, and like I
Of
literally
course you do.
have read it back to front, and
Nobody's surprised.
it's so great because it like goes through it county by county.
Oh,
So
wow.
just like reading the Northwest bits and like being like, which bits do I want to put in? Which creatures do I want to put in? Which
Yeah.
stories do I want to put in? So everything that appears in Witchlore is a myth or a legend that is associated with the Northwest. So like the Black Shuck of Manchester Cathedral, that's a real haunting story from the 1900s. Or from the 1800s ish, late 1800s. And yeah, everything is like connected. That's why the Wizard's Cave at Audley Edge like features is such a central part of the book because that is a kind of intensely northern magical location.
Mm.
So many other fantasy authors have written about it and have included it in different ways in their work. So it just felt right that it needed to be included in mine. And it has lots of myths and legends associated with it, full stop anyway. So it's such a, yeah, like the island that we live on has such a tremendously rich cultural and folklore history.
Hmm.
I just wanted to include as much of it as I could. So it's just tremendously fun because I just got to be like, what do I want to make real? Everything? Yeah, pretty much everything. And it gives me so much potential moving forward in the world because like I can make anything real that I want to make real. The rule is it just like has to be connected from to me to like the land in some way.
And we know how much you love your research. So
Oh yeah. Yeah.
feral for it.
Carol for it.
I just realised that I'd never even asked about the fact that Lando is a shapeshifter and why it was that experience specifically that you wanted to explore because I don't know if I've ever read about a shapeshifter.
So this is to be blamed on my friend who is an artist in the United States. Goes by the Instagram tag A Love Unlaced. You can find their work online. It is Chelsea, so NSFW. Um, but they were complaining. They read so much paranormal and fantasy romance, and they were complaining about the lack of like non-binary shapeshifter representation in fantasy literature. And I was sort of like, feels like we can do something about that. Feels like that's possible to tackle. And that's all. Like, it's not that they then were like, oh, this is the book that I want you to write and blah blah blah. This book is very different to anything that they maybe would have wanted if they knew that I was going to be like writing a book off something that they said.
Yeah.
Um, but it's it also just fit really well with what I wanted to achieve in a story. Like I knew that my main goal was like teenager
Hmm.
who is depressed, wanders into a world of like magic and fantasy and
Yeah.
gets caught up and doesn't feel like they fit in. And then it just yeah, it made sense to use shapeshifting and to like develop a society where there's still kind of, I think sometimes we think magic societies would fix everything, you
Hmm.
know, there's that kind of feeling. And there's a lot of also fantasy literature that focuses on like the prejudice between like magic people and non-magic people, right?
Yeah.
That's quite common. But I wanted something that like looked at levels of prejudice within a magical society
Hmm.
out that's separate from humans. And so incorporating shapeshifters gave me that opportunity. But also like shape-shifting is a big part of folkloric stuff. Like there are so
Right.
many folklore tales that incorporate the changing of form or the shifting, the idea of somebody, a creature that looks like somebody that you think you know and is actually an imp or a devil trying to get hold of you or doing something like that. Like there are so many folklore stories like that. So I felt like shapeshifting is an integral part of like how we understand ourselves in through folklore and the kind of stories that we tell. So
Hmm.
and it was just yeah, I just tried it and it worked and I stuck with it and now we have it.
I thought it was really fun to read because like I said, I've not read. Yeah, I don't think I think I can confidently say I haven't read from the perspective of a shapeshifter before. I don't even think I've read anything about a shapeshifter, so that was completely new to me. And I think like I've read so much about like witches and about like whether that be in fantasy or whether it be about like the witch trials specifically. I've read so much about that, but like nothing on shapeshifters. So I think that was a really interesting thing to read, and also reading it from the perspective of like a non-binary person, and all the sort of issues that might come out not only in the how they're treated in the world of magic, but also how they're treated in their own kind of personal life as outside of the magic world. I feel like I'm trying to
Yeah,
word this
no,
carefully so that I don't spoil
no.
anything, but
I think something that I liked about exploring it was like Lando's unique experience of gender dysphoria and
Mhm.
what they experience as a person in that situation. But like there would be it's very specific to them. You know, there
Mhm.
would be like another kind of person who's non-binary who maybe would like flourish with the kind of powers that they have, but Lando can't use their powers.
Right.
So they feel constantly stuck and constantly misgendered and misunderstood
Mhm.
because they don't have any control over their own body. And that was sort of important for me to put in the narrative is that they're not this incredibly competent magical person who
Yeah.
has all this power at their disposal and can do all of these crazy cool things. They really can't do anything. Like they can't do even the simplest of spells. And so they're kind of handicapped in the narrative.
Right.
And that was the story that I sort of wanted to tell is about powerlessness, really,
Yeah.
and feeling of like emotional helplessness, but also being like disconnected from the structures around you that give you power.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, there was something that I wanted to explore.
Obviously, I was going to love the representation of Manchester in there.
Yes.
I loved all the touch points and how much of a visual reading experience it became because, there's places that for anybody that knows and loves Manchester like we do, it's our home city. Like, there's places that you just give so many nods to, our favorite coffee shop, shout
Yeah.
out Ezra and
Yeah.
Gill. We love it. But in this is called Ezra's. And we have the John Rylands Library, which is a beautiful place. But you just give like so many, like Stevenson Square, like just so many places that like we've walked around or walked past or been in. And it was just so nice to see all of that. Was
A
it always
lot.
going to be in Manchester?
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
let's be honest, like so much British magical fantasy can be centered around London. And there are people who are,
Most fiction full stop is
yeah.
UK
And like
based.
there are people who are doing like different versions of it and stuff like that. Like it's so cool that like Juno Dawson's Her Majesty's Secret Coven, like that has Manchester in it, it has Hebden Bridge in it, like,
Oh, I didn't know that.
like yeah, but it does, still have London moments and things like that. But like it's much more diverse. But part of that is just that there are key players in the
Hmm.
fantasy game for the last 20 years who have been produced very London centric
Yeah.
books. But that's, that's just what happens. And I think it's just, hopefully, it just makes people kind of want to hang out in Manchester. Like, it's a fun place. It's so much fun. And the fact that like all of this folklore is just so close to us, it's like right on our doorstep.
Hmm.
It's under the streets that we walk in. Like, there is so much Manchester folklore that I didn't have space to include. Like, I really had to think. I was like, I know I wanted something to happen just outside the city. So that
Hmm.
was like a fallow field kind of moment. I wanted something to happen in the city. I knew I wanted something to happen on the coast, like, because I needed them to go away for a night and come
Yeah.
back. And I knew I wanted to use the Wizard's Cave at Alderley Edge. So like I had like these dots and I needed like a Manchester moment, and it was so hard to choose like what folklore story I wanted to like engage with and bring into the story
Hmm.
for that, because there's just so much. There's so many like cool hauntings and ghost stories and so much in Manchester that's connected to magic. And I mean, I've written Manchester magic into The Quick and the Dead because with John Dee, who was like in Manchester, and it's just there's just so much that I could have used, and I had so much fun pulling it all in. And it was really funny when Dell, who was like one of the first people who read it, they were kind of like, do you walk up Deansgate from like from St. Peter's Square to the John Rylance? Would you say that you walk up it? I would 100% say that I walk up Deansgate to get to the John Rylance from St. Peter's Square. And we had
Yeah.
like a whole conversation about whether you use the word up, because it is flat, but like, do you go up, or it's just like,
I would say that.
it was really fun to kind of put all of these like little bits in. And yeah, even just in some of the really really silly things, like it was really important to me to like talk about the ginkgo cheese in Stevenson Square, because like in autumn they produce like this beautiful yellow cut leaves all over the square, and it's
Yeah.
gorgeous. And I wanted to like have a moment where they were in St. Anne's Square with the tulip fountain, because like that's such a nice place to sit and be. And I like have a reference to like the Emmeline Pankhurst statue
Yes.
and the Reading Girl statue at the Central Reference Library, and just like all of those places. I really wanted it to feel as much a lived in, loved city as any kind of like description of like London would.
Yeah, I did think when they go into Demdike College and they get into the
Yeah.
lift reminded me of the lift at Hope Mill.
Yes, it is. It's based on the
Is it? Oh
literary.
my God, I knew it. I knew it.
I wondered when someone was going to get that. So like Demdike is like physically in place kind of opposite, nearly opposite Ezra and Gill, where those studios used to be, where we used to be,
Yes.
and they're no longer there.
Yeah,
So that's like the physical place of it, but the actual building is
is.
based on the Hope Mill building.
Oh my God. Yeah, as soon as they said about pulling I was like, that is anyone that has been in that lift will know.
Yes, and also
Terrifying.
the stone circle
Yeah.
staircase, and then like the common room is based on that top room at Hope Mill.
Oh my
With,
God.
like the
It is
big
such a gorgeous
skyline.
building, isn't
Yeah.
it? Like it's freezing cold and it's like a death trap in that lift and on
Yeah.
those stairs, but you can totally see it being like the perfect place for a magic college. Like
Yeah, exactly. So it's like I
that building, but placed over by Ezra
yeah,
and
yeah,
got
I
you.
basically moved that factory.
Oh my God. I'm actually obsessed by hooked up on that. I do want to say that Carl Lord is a cunt.
Yes, yes, that's fair.
Not a fan of that
Well,
vile human.
I think for any like YA book, I think bullying and like school and the like infighting of teenage communities is something that you do, like it does feel like something that slides in quite
Yeah.
easily. Is like, especially because it is very much like a college book. So I really wanted there to be, as much as there's a villain in this book, and I don't think there is like a straight villain, he's just kind of like an ordinary dickhead. But I wanted that experience to be on the page, that like one of the worst things about being a teenager is you just have to go to school with complete cunts and you
Yeah.
have no choice about it and you can't get away from them. It's kind of the same as like going to work maybe in adulthood, but I don't know. I think there's something specific about the teenage experience that is uniquely annoying.
Yeah, I don't miss that whatsoever. Having to deal with horrible, nasty people and walking into a room and immediately being like, if they're in there feeling really on edge and,
Yeah.
watching everything you do and say whilst they're about. Oh my God, the thought of it is just awful. So yeah, I did not like him. I did get very excited about Beryl's cat, Mr. Pebbles.
Based on this kid.
Because you wrote Mr. Pebbles is not a cat, he is a demon, and I immediately was like, Scout.
Yes, this cat that currently looks so angelic on the camera is the demon on which Mr. Pebbles is based.
Yeah.
Yep, 100%. And also Bastian's dog, Renee, is based on our friend Sam and Laura's dog, Amy.
Yes, I did think so.
Yeah. I think I was just lazy at that point.
I
I
don't
was
think
just
it's lazy.
like, I'm not going to think of a new pet. Are you kidding me? I'm just going to put in the ones that I like or don't like in this case.
Scout's like, excuse me.
Yeah, yeah.
Not the vegan baby bells. What was Lando thinking?
So many people had like made this like people love that scene. I don't want to spoil it, but it involves a bottle. And yeah, it's just so it just makes people laugh. I also got like an Instagram message of somebody being like repping the unicorn grocery in Chiltern, and they had like a unicorn tote bag, which was like they were like loving the representation of the unicorn grocery,
Is
which is
that a real shop?
yeah, so Unicorn is
I
a
didn't know that.
yeah, it's a vegan supermarket in Chiltern, and that's where
No
Lando.
way.
Yeah,
Oh my
Lando
God,
has
how
a
have I never
part-time
come
job
across that?
at
I
a
mean,
vegan.
you are dairy-free diva.
Yeah, I'm a
So,
dairy.
of course you would know about that.
Yeah, yeah. I got in like a little tiz actually because like the place where Lando and Bastian go on their first date in Chiltern is called Barrio, and I used to go there
Yes.
all the time for coffee. But it like closed down after the pandemic, I think, and now it's no longer there. And I was like, oh no, I'm gonna have to change it. And then I was
Is
like,
that the Mexican place?
yeah.
Oh my God, me and Billy went there for food and loved it. I didn't know it had closed down. Well, maybe I did. I don't know. Maybe I've been somewhere since and just not realised that it's not there anymore. Very sad. What is you've written, you're editing
I'm
a
editing.
second YA book now.
Yes,
Um,
but I've been told I can tell you all about it.
well,
Yes.
what can you tell us?
Okay, very excited. The second book is what we call an equal, not a sequel.
An equal, not a sequel.
Yeah, so it's set in the same world as Witchlore.
So the title, we need a reveal, a big reveal. The
Okay, so the
title
title,
of your second book is, drumroll please.
Night Curse. Yeah. And I'm very excited about it. It's set in a magical library in the Peak District.
Oh, love.
And it's the same magical world, so there's still witches and shapeshifters and all of that. But this is the main character is a very particular kind of magical creature, called a revenant, who are the undead. So
Ooh,
it's about an undead teenager and their life at a magical library in the Peak District.
iconic.
And there's lots of drama. There's much drama. It is, yeah, we're really excited about it. It's the vibes are dark academia, enemies to lovers. That's where we're living.
Oh, I can't
All
wait.
all set in the north. There's a Manchester scene. There's a scene in Wales.
Love.
It's like so, yeah,
Oh my God, I actually can't wait. Exclusive.
exclusive content.
Yeah, I can't wait for that. And I'm really excited that you got me reading more YA because I definitely don't read much of it at all. And this was just really nice and really fun. Like I said before, although there was, the themes of grief and loss and mental health and all the good stuff that we love, it was a really fun, adventurous novel, and I loved gallivanting around Manchester with Lando and Bastian.
Yeah, that's what
I
I
love them so much.
when people are like, how do you summarize it? I'm like, gay teens running around Manchester doing magic. Like that's the vibes. We just want it to be like,
That should have
yeah,
been the synopsis earlier.
yeah,
By the
it's fun, and I hope that it's fun for everybody, whatever age they're reading at. I really enjoyed seeing that like so many parents who are like thinking about reading it with like their young people are
Hmm.
enjoying it, stuff like that, and that means a lot. And yeah, just really excited for people to meet the characters in the next one.
Can't wait. And everyone, go grab yourselves a copy. I will be popping a link in the show notes for both UK and US listeners. That is the only place it's available at the moment, isn't it?
Yep. So
Yeah,
it's UK and US and would
amazing.
make a perfect Christmas present, I feel.
I
Like,
agree. I would absolutely agree. And yeah, go buy yourselves a copy, guys, and come and tell us what you think. We'd love to hear from you. Before I let you go, this is going to throw you into turmoil. I do like to finish by asking for a recommendation.
what kind of recommendation?
It can be
What do you
anything, books, TV, film, music, anything goes.
Okay, well, I'm just gonna go off the cuff. I just watched the Knives Out movie last night at the cinema.
And how was it?
I had a tremendously fun time. Josh O'Connor is killing it.
I
I am,
love Josh O'Connor.
yeah, yeah. I'm so here for it. And yeah, and for anybody who's looking for like Christmas presents for kind of middle grade readers, I would like to recommend my pal who is also working in the children's space, which is Ashley Thorpe,
We
who's
love Ashley.
yeah, second book, Spirit Warriors, is came out this year. His first book, The Boy Who Beat the Gods, was also great. And yeah, they're great adventure stories for anybody who's kind of reading at the middle grade kind of age and loves a fantasy adventure.
We love to see it. Where can the listeners find you online, Emma?
You can find me mostly on Instagram at ELPH Elf Reads. I also Tumble, so you can find me on Tumblr at ELPH13. You can also find me on AO3 on that same name. And yeah, that's me. That's where I am. I'm on Instagram, I'm on Tumblr, I'm on AO3. Yeah,
And your books are all available in all good bookshops,
yes.
knowing The Quick and the Dead and Witchlore.
If you can, please do support your local bookshops, especially at this time of year.
Yeah.
We would love it if you did that. If you're not,
What are your
uh,
favourite indies? Rattle them
oh,
off.
of
Rattle them
all
off.
time.
Yeah,
No.
rattle them off.
Okay, so my favorite indies that you can order from wherever you are in the country, you can get all of my books from Queer Lit. We're a Manchester bookshop, but you can order from them online as well. I also love Serenity Books in Stockport. They are fantastic. And tomorrow night, I am going to the wonderful Wave of Nostalgia bookshop in Haworth to talk about Witchlore there. So I'll give them a little shout out as well. But we
Love
love the
that.
indies everywhere. We
We
love
do.
all the indies everywhere.
We definitely do. This has been a joy.
It's always a joy. It's always a joy to talk to you. Make my life brighter, my day more
I
special.
love you so much.
You too.
And I love your books and getting to watch you go from strength to strength. It sounds so cringe, but you really are killing it. And I'm so proud of you. And I love that I get to be your little cheerleader.
Pocket-sized publicist. Yeah.
Exactly.
It's not killing it. I am at least strangling the things until they pass out. So it's like
That's
almost.
enough. We're never going to shut up if we carry on. So thanks everyone for listening. Go grab a copy of Witchlaw.
Yes,
Um,
please.
and give Emma a follow. And if you enjoyed this episode, please don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe. And if you want to give us a follow, you can do so at Pair of Bookends Pod on Instagram and at Pair of Bookends on Twitter and TikTok. You can also hear more of me and Emma chatting absolute shit over on Patreon.
Oh yeah, we
.com
love to do it.
/ a pair of bookends. We do talk a lot of rubbish on there, but we love it and you will love it too. So thanks so much for listening. Goodbye.
Bye.